my thoughts. Thou art perplexed, and hast the wish that my speech be bolted again in language so open and so plain that it may be level of thy sense. Where just now I said, where well one fattens, and there where I said, the second has not been born, and here is need that one distinguish well. The providence which governs the world with that counsel in which every creative vision is vanquished ere it reach the depth, in order that the bride of him, who with loud cries espoused her with his blessed blood, might be toward her be loved secure in itself, with also more faithful to him, ordained two princes in her favor, who on this side and that should be on her for guides. The one was all great seraphic and adore, the other through wisdom was a splendor of cherubic light on earth. Of the one I will speak, because both are spoken, or of in praising one, whichever be taken for unto one end where their works. Okay, little Nicky. I see you, little Nicky. Between the Tupino and the water, which ascends from the hill chosen by the blessed Ubaldo, hangs the fertile slope of a high mountain, wherefrom Perugia at Portasol feeleth cold and heat, while behind it Nacera and Gualdo weep because of their heavy yoke. On that slope where it most breaks its steepness rose a sun upon the world as this one sometimes does from the Ganges. Therefore let him who talks of that place not say Assisi, for he would speak short but orient, if he would speak properly. He was not yet very far from his rising when he began to make the earth feel some comfort from his great virtue. For still a youth he ran to strife with his father from a lady such as unto whom, even as unto death, no one unlocks the gate of pleasure, and before his spiritual court, et sorum patre, to her he had himself united. Thereafter from day to day he had loved her more ardently. She deprived of her first husband for 1,100 years and more, despised and obscure, had stood without wooing till he came. Nor had it availed to hear that he who caused fear to all the world found her at the sound of his voice secure with Amoclus. Nor had it availed to have been constant and bold, so that where Mary remained below she wept with Christ upon the cross. But that I may not proceed too obscurely, take henceforth in my diffuse speech, Francis, in poverty for these lovers. Their concord and their glad semblance made love and wonder and sweet regard to be the cause of holy thoughts, so that the venerable Bernard first bared his feet, and run following such great peace, and running it seemed to him that he was slow. O unknown riches! O fertile good! Aegidius bears his feet, and Sylvester bears his feet following the bridegroom. So pleasing is the bride. Then that father and that master goes on his way with his lady, and with that family which the humble cord was now girding. Nor did baseness of heart weigh down his brow at being son of Pietro Bernardone, nor at appearing marvellously despised, but royally he opened his hard intention to innocent, and received from him the first seal for his order. After the poor people had increased behind him, whose marvelous life will be better sung in glory of the heavens, the holy purpose of this our archimandrite was adorned with the second crown by the eternal Spirit, through Honorius. And when through thirst for martyrdom he had preached Christ, and the rest who followed him in the proud presence of the Sultan, and because he found the people too unripe for conversion, and in order not to stay in vain, had returned to the fruit of the Italian grass on the rude rock between the Tiber and the Arno, he took from Christ the last seal, which his limbs bore for 2 years, when it pleased him, who had allotted him to such great good, to draw him up to the reward which he had gained in making himself subject. He commended his most dear lady to his brethren as to rightful heirs, and commanded them to love her faithfully, and from her lap his illustrious soul willed to depart, returning to his realm, and for his body he willed no other bier. Think now what sort was he, who was worthy colleague to keep the bark of Peter on the deep sea to its right aim. And this was our patriarch. Wherefore thou canst see that whoever follows him as he commands loads good merchandise. But his flock has become a greedy of strange food, that it cannot but he scattered over diverse meadows. And as his sheep remote and vagabond go further from him, the emptier of milk they return to the fold. Truly, there are some of them who fear and harm, and keep close to the shepherd, but they are so few that little cloth suffices for their cowls. But if my words are not obscure, if thy hearing has been attentive, if thou recallest to mind that which I have said, thy wish will be content in part, because thou wilt see the plant wherefrom they are hewn, and thou wilt see how the wearer of thy reasons, where it well one fattens if one does not astray.
Okay. Try to switch it up. Do some Aristotle, maybe. I think that was Aristotle speaking, actually. You can tell by their flow. You have the 24 judges in there, and you can tell by their flow. So you can tell when they're switching from the Brahmin. You can tell whenever... Bro! You know what I mean? So...
As I pointed out the song there that he can hear.
I can tell, as far as with the ones that I know. I'm sure there's others, like the 24. I don't know the 24. That's the thing about it. You're just kind of throwing names at me. And I don't really know who to believe or what's what. Not only that, you're kind of throwing different names on yourself as like an avatar. So it's kind of like, well, I'll just take this with a grain of salt. But I mean, you're definitely watching me. Oh, politics, where are you? Oh, this one. This is the one. Okay, cool. Chapter 11, add to list.
King of the Hill.
On the chin?
Hill incoming.
Got anybody in the booth today? Chapter 11 of Aristotle. The Carthaginians are also thought to be beautifully governed in many ways that are exceptionally in comparison to those of other people, and especially in some ways that approximate those of the Spartans. For these three forms of government are in some way close to one another and much different from the rest. The Cretan, the Spartan, and the third among them, that of the Carthaginians. Many of their raiments work beautifully among them, and it is a sign of an orderly form of government that the populace remain within the order the Constitution prescribes, and that no factional division that is even worth mentioning has come about, and no tyrant. The resemblances it has to the Spartan form of government include the common meals of the clubs, like the Fidicia, the office of the 104, like the Ephors, but not worse, for the latter are taken from among random people, but they choose this office on basis of excellence. I mean, you're not wrong. And the kings and the council of elders, analogous to the kings and the elders there, but also better in that the kings are not a family of their own, and that a random one, but chosen from among those that happen to excel in any manner, rather than by age. For they are put in authority over great matters if they are mediocre people. They can do great damage, and such people have already damaged the city of the Spartans.
Enemy team scored. Hill incoming.
Now, most of the objections that may be made to it for deviations happen to the common to all the forms of government mentioned, of things that deviate from the underlying principle of aristocracy and constitutional government. Some incline it more in the direction of the populace, others toward oligarchy. Over the question of what to refer or not refer to the people, the kings along with the elders are in charge. If they are all in agreement, but if they are not, the populace is in charge of those things. And on whatever measures they do bring to the people, They allow them not just to hear things enacted by the rulers, but the people are in charge of deciding on them, and it is open to anyone who wishes to speak against the things proposed, which is precisely what cannot happen in the other governments. On the other hand, the fact that committees of 5, which are in charge of many great matters, are self-appointed while they choose the greatest office, that of the 100, and also rule for a longer time than the rest, both after those have left office and before they enter it, is oligarchy. But the fact that they are unpaid and not chosen by lot must be set down as aristocratic, along with anything else there might be of that sort, as well as the fact that all lawsuits are judged by the rulers, and not different kinds by different persons as in Sparta. The arrangement of the Carthaginians have that deviates most from aristocracy towards oligarchy, follows a certain line of thought which seems good to many people, for they believe one ought to choose rulers not only on the basis of excellence but also on the basis of wealth, because it is impossible for someone without resources to do a beautiful job of ruling and have the leisure for it. So if choosing on the basis of wealth is oligarchic and according to virtue is aristocratic, a third arrangement would be this one, by which things pertaining to the government are organized by the Carthaginians, since they make the choice with an eye on these two things, especially for the highest offices, the kings and the generals. But one ought to consider the deviation from aristocracy an error on the part of the lawgiver. For this is one of the most necessary things to see to from the beginning, how the best people will be enabled to be at leisure and now to do anything demeaning, not only while they are ruling, but even in private life. But if one does have to look also to the abundance of resources for the sake of leisure, it is a bad thing for the highest of offices, kingship and military command, to be for sale. For this law causes wealth to be held in honor more than virtue, and turns the whole city into a money-loving place. Whatever the authoritative part of the city assumes is valuable. The opinion of the rest of the citizens will necessarily follow theirs. And wherever virtue is not honored most of all, it is impossible for that place to have a stable, aristocratic government. It stands to reason that those who lay money out will get used to making a profit, but when they rule as a result of buying the position, for if someone who is poor but honest will want to get a profit, it will be strange if someone who is worse would not want to after he has spent money. Hence, those capable of ruling excellently ought to be the ones to rule. And even if the lawgiver has neglected the resources of decent people, it would still be better to take care of their leisure, at least while they rule. And it would also seem to be a bad thing for the same person to rule in more than one office. Yet the very thing is prestigious among the Carthaginians, for one job is carried out best by one person. The lawgiver ought to see that this happens and not assign the same person to play the flute and be a shoemaker. So where the city is not tiny, it is more suited to political life, as well as more democratic, for more people to share in ruling, for it is both more communal. As we said, and each person carries out his own task more beautifully and quickly. This is clear among members of armies and navies, for in both of these ruling and being ruled spread out to virtually everyone. And while the government is oligarchic, they avoid faction in a most effective way, because some part of the populace is always getting rich when they send people out to the cities, since by this means they cure the problem and make the government stable. But this is the work of chance, while they ought to be free of faction on account of the lawgiver. As things are, if some misfortune were to arise and a larger number of those who are ruled revolted, there is no remedy through the laws to restore calm. So this is the way it is with the Spartan form of government, the Cretan one, and that the Carthaginians, which are indeed justly highly regarded. Second circle of the spirits of wise religious men, doctors of the church and teachers. Saint Bonaventura narrates the life of Saint Dominic and tells the names of those who form the circle with him. Soon as the blessed flame uttered the last word of its speech, the holy millstone began to rotate, and had not wholly turned its gyration before another enclosed it with a circle, and matched motion with motion, song with song, song in which those sweet pipes so surpass as our muses, our sirens, and the primal splendor of which it reflects. As two bows parallel and of like colors are turned across a thin cloud, when Juno gives the order of her handmaid, the outer one born of that within, after the manner of the speech of the wondering one, who love consumed as the sun does vapors, and make the people hear presageful because of the covenant which God established with Noah concerning the world that is never more to be flooded. So the two garlands of those sempiternal roses turned around us, until the outer responded to the inner. After the dance and the other great festivity, alike of the singing and of the flaming light, with the light joyous and courteous, had begun quiet together at an instant, and with one at will, just as eyes which must needs together close and open to pleasure move them. Yeah, I can feel it. From the heart of one of the new lights a voice proceeded, which made me seem as a needle to the star, and turned me to its place. And it began. The love which makes me beautiful draws me to speak of the other leader by whom so well has been spoken here of mine. It is fit that whereon is the other be led in, so that they serve in war with one another. Together likewise may their glory shine. The army of Christ, which it had cost so dear to arm afresh, was moving slow, mistrustful, and scattered behind the standard, when the emperor who forever reigns provided for the soldiery that was in peril through grace alone, not because it was worthy, and as has been said, secured his bride with 2 champions by whose deed, by whose word, the people gone astray were rallied. In that region where the sweet west wind rises to open the new leaves wherewith Europe is seen to recloth herself, not very far from the beating of the waves behind which, over their long course, the sun sometimes hides himself to all men, sits the fortune Calaroca, under the protection of the great shield on which the line is subject and subjugates. Therein was born the enormous lover of the Christian faith and the holy athlete, benignant to his own and to his enemies harsh. And when it was created, his mind was so replete with living virtue that in his mother it made her prophetess. After the espousals between him and the faith were completed at the sacred font, where they dowed each other with mutual safety, the lady who gave the assent to him saw in a dream the marvelous fruit which was to proceed from him and from his heirs. And in order that he might be spoken of as he was, a spirit went forth from here to name him with the possessive of him whose he wholly was. Dominic he was called, and I speak of him as a husbandman who Christ elected to his garden to assist him. Truly he seemed the messenger and familiar of Christ, for the first love that was manifested in him was for the first counsel that Christ gave. Oftentimes was he found by his nurse upon the ground, silent and awake, as though he said, I am come for this. O father of him, truly Felix. O mother of him, truly Joan. If this being interpreted means as is said, not for the world, for which men now toil, following him of Ostia and Thaddeus, but for the love of the true manna, he became a short in time a great teacher, such that he set himself to go about the vineyard, which quickly fades as if the vine dresser is bad, and of the seat, which was formerly more benign unto the righteous poor, not through itself, but through him who sits there and degenerates. He asked not to dispense or 2 or 3 for 6, not the fortune of the first vacancy, non decamus quae sunt paperinde, but leave to fight against the errant world for that seed of which 24 plants are girding thee. Then with doctrine and with will, together with the apostle office, he went forth like a torrent which a lofty vein pours out, and on the heretical stocks his onset smote with most vigor, there where the resistance was the greatest. From him proceeded thereafter divers streams, wherewith the Catholic garden is watered, so that its bushes stand more living. If such was one wheel of the chariot on what the Holy Church defended itself unvanquished, in the field of civil strife, surely the excellence of the other should be very plain to thee, concerning which Thomas before my coming was so courteous. But the track which the highest part of its circumference made is derelict, so that the mold is where the crust was. His household, which set forth straight with their feet upon his footprints, are so turned round that they set the forward foot on that behind. And soon the quality of the harvest of this bad culture shall be seen, when the tare will complain that he chest is taken from it. Yet I say, he who should search our volume leaf by leaf might still find a page where he would read, I am that which I am wont, but it will not be from Casale, nor from Aquasparta, whence such come into the written rule, that once flies from it, and the other contracts it. I am the life of Bonaventura of Bagnorijo, whose great office is always set sinister care behind me. Illuminato and Augustine are here, who are among the first barefoot poor that in the cord made themselves friends to God. Hugh of Saint Victor is here with them, and Peter Mangiador, and Peter of Spain, who down below shines in 12 books. Nathan the prophet and metropolitan, Chrysostom, and Oslum, and that Donatus, who deigned to set his hand to the first art. Rabin is here, and at my side shines the Calabrian abbot, Joachim, endowed with prophetic spirit. The flaming courtesy of Brother Thomas and his discreet discourse moved me to celebrate so great a paladin, and with me moved this company. And you also have the right to remain silent. Hide it, hide it. Chris, hide it. Yeah, you need to hide it.
Capture the flag.
No clue what you're talking about. Again, I think you missed the point there. Then you were framed by God. That's all I have to say. The answer is no, and you were framed by God. Pay the man the money. We're not kidding. Canto 13. I don't know whatever this is. It needs to me gone. Ooh. There he is. Whatever the fuck that was. Clearly you were sitting there. So whoever the fuck that was is going to jail for the rest of their life. I assure you. Oh, they're dying. Okay, I appreciate the stab there as we go through the 24 and the judgment of the plant. The water. See, I don't know. That's the thing I don't know. However, my theory on you is the pyramids. I think they're trying to mask it. You see where I'm coming from? The weight there. What's up with that? Not really trying to hear that at all. Shut up. I mean what I said. You have no say in this. Absolutely no say in this. Absolutely no amount of pain that you're going to cause is going to get you out of this. I mean what I say, motherfucker. So you can go ahead and shut the fuck up. Keep it up. Oh, I can do it too. Let's get out of Ness here. Here's Earthbound. Oh, really? You should probably stop doing that. And I mean sooner than later.
Flag returned. Flag captured.
You keep bringing up women and it's like, I'm literally just like passing by. In passing. I'm not interested at all. So, like, I'm going elsewhere. I guess you missed the whole point of it. As you sit there and cry out for help there. SOS. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I think the real culprit here would be the pyramids. Definitely a sound wave, a bass. You definitely went down a hole. And I could see whatever that was over there. Bro, where was he? What a pro. Hold on, I haven't more video. Now you know. You keep trying, it's like, it's gonna be my way, I promise you. I'll be number one, I'll be first. Yeah. Excuse me? Yeah, I will.
What a pro.
Go ahead,
dude.
get up to that
Look at this
flashing
guy.
light, bitch. Yes, I will.
I forgot that was over there.
Enemy flag.
Sir, yes, sir. Negative. Canto 13, St. Thomas Aquinas speaks again and explains the relation of the wisdom of Solomon to that of Adam and of Christ and declares the vanity of human judgment. Let him imagine who desires to understand well that which I now saw, and let him retain the image like a firm rock while I am speaking. 15 stars which in different regions vivify the heaven with brightness so great that it overcomes all thickness of the air. Let him imagine that wane, for when the bosom of our heaven suffices both night and day, so that in the turning of its pole it disappears
After
not.
all that time, you
Let him
didn't
imagine the
show
mouth of
down?
that horn, which
Is that a
begins at the
joke?
point of the axle, on which the primal wheel goes round. To have made of
Is that a
themselves
joke?
two signs in the heavens, like that which the daughter of Minos made when she felt
Fraud!
the death, and one to have its
Yeah, that's
ray
where we
within the
exit.
other.
It's
And
25
both
years for
revolve
that.
in such manner that one would go first and the other after.
It's
and you will
25
have
years
as
for
with
it.
the
No, we
shadow
are
of the true
not.
constellation and of the double dance. Which
That
was circling the
sucks that
point
you
where I
did
was,
this,
because it is much
retard.
beyond our want, as the motion of the heaven which outspeeds
Not
all
cool.
the rest is swifter than the movement of the Sienna.
So you can expect the worst, motherfucker. No, it ain't
Sienna.
brother in arms.
Ciao.
Retard.
There
25
was
years for
sung
that.
not Bacchus, not Pan, and three persons in a divine nature, and it and the human in one person. The singing and the revolving completed each its measure, and those holy lights gave attention to us, making themselves happy care to the care. Then the light in which the marvelous life of the poor man of God had been narrated to me broke the silence among those coordinated deities, and said, Since one straw is threshed, since the seed is now garnered, sweet love invites me to beat out the other. Thou believest that in the breast wherefrom the rib was drawn to form the beautiful cheek, whose taste cost dear to all the world, and in that which pierced by the lance both after and before made such satisfaction that it overcomes the balance of all sin, and whatever light it is fall to human nature to have was all infused by that power which made one and the other. And therefore thou wonderest at that which I said above, when I told that the good which in the fifth light is enclosed had no second. Now open thy eyes to that which I answer to thee, and thou wilt see thy belief in my speech become in the truth as the center in the circle. That which dies not, and that which can die are not but the splendor of that idea which in his love our Lord God brings to birth. For that living light which so proceeds from its lucent source, that it is not disunited from it, nor from the love which with them is enshrined, through its own bounty collects its radiance, as it were mirrored, in 9 substances, itself eternally remaining one. Thence it descends to the ultimate potentialities downward from act to act, becoming such that finally it makes naught save brief contingencies, and these contingencies I understand to be the generated things which the heavens in their motion produce with seed and without. The wax of these, and that which molds it, are not of one mode, and therefore under the ideal stamp it shines. Now more, now less, whence it comes to pass that one same plant is
Capture the
respect to
flag.
species bears better or worse fruit, and that ye are born with diverse dispositions. If the wax were exactly worked, and the heavens were supreme in their power, the whole light of the seal would be apparent. But nature always gives it defective working, like that artist who has the practice of his art in a hand that trembles. Nevertheless, if the fervent love disposes and imprints the clear light of the primal power, complete perfection is acquired here. Thus of old the earth was made worthy of the complete perfection of the living being. Thus was the Virgin made impregnate. So that I command the opinion that human nature never was, nor will be, what it was in those two persons. Now if I should not proceed further, then how was this man without peer? Would thy words begin? But in order that which is not apparent may clearly appear, consider who he was, and the occasion which moved him to request when it was said to him. Ask. I have not so spoken that thou canst not clearly see that he was a king, who asked for wisdom, in order that he might be a worthy king, not to know the number of the motors here on high, or if necess with a contingent ever made necess, non si est der primum modum esse, or if in the semicircle a triangle can be made so that it should not have one right angle,
Wherefore, if thou notest this, and what I said, kingly prudence is that peerless scene on which the narrow of my intention strikes. And if thou directest clear eyes to the hath risen, thou wilt see it has respect only to kings, who are many and the good are few. With the distinction take thou my saying, and thus it can stand with that which thou believest of the first father and of her delight. And let this be ever as lead to thy feet, to make thee move slow as a weary man, both to the yes and to the no, which thou seest not, for he is very long among the fools, who affirms or denies without distinction, alike in the one and in the other case, because it happens that oftentimes the current opinion bends in false direction, and then the inclination binds with the understanding. Far more than vainly does he leave the bank, since he returns not such as he sets out, who fishes for the truth, and has not the art. And of this are manifest proofs to the world, Parmenides, Malices, Brissus, and many others who went on and knew not whither. So did Sibelius and Arius, and those fools who were so swords to the scriptures to make their straight faces crooked. Let not the people still be too secure in judgment, like him who reckons up the blades in the field, they are ripe. For I have seen the briar first show itself stiff and wild all winter long, then bear the rose upon its top. And I have seen a bark ere now run straight and swift across the sea through all its course, to perish at last at entrance of the harbor. Let not Dame Partha and Master Martin, seeing one rob and another make offering, see them within the divine council, for the one may rise and the other may fall. Canto 15. At the prayer of Beatrice, Solomon tells of the glorified body of the blessed after the last judgment. Ascent to the heaven of Mars, souls of the soldiery of Christ, in the form of the cross with the fear of Christ thereon. Hymn of the Spirits. From the center to the rim, and so from the rim to the center, the water in a round vessel moves, according as it is struck from without or within. This which I say fell suddenly into my mind when the glorious life of Thomas became silent, because of the similitude which was born of his speech in that of Beatrice, whom after him it pleased thus to begin. This man has need, and he tells it not to you, neither with his voice, nor is yet in thought of going to the root of another truth. Tell him that the light wherewith your substance blossoms will remain with you eternally, even as it is now. And if it remain, tell how, after you shall be again made visible, it will be possible that it hurt not your sight. As when urged and drawn by greater pleasure, those who are dancing in a ring with one accord lift their voice and gladden their motions, so at that prompt and devout petition the holy circles showed new joy in their turning in their marvelous melody, whose laments because man dies here in order to live there above, has not seen here the refreshment of the eternal reign. That one and two and three whichever lives, and ever reigns in three and two and one, uncircumscribed and uncircumscribing everything, was thrice sung by each of those spirits with such a melody that for every merit it would be a just reward. And I heard in the divinest light of the small circle a modest voice, perhaps such as was that of the angel of Mary, make answer: as long as the festival of paradise shall be, so long will our love radiate around as much a garment. Its brightness follows our adore, the adore our vision, and that is a great in proportion as it receives of grace above its own worth. When the glorious and sanctified flesh shall be put on us again, our persons will be more pleasing, their being all complete. Wherefore whatever of gratuitous light the supreme good gives us will be increased, light which enables us to see him, so that our vision needs must increase, our adore increase which by that is kindled, our radiance increase which comes from this. But even as a coal which gives forth flame, and by a vivid glow surpasses it, so that it defends its own aspect, thus this effulgence, which already encircles us, will be vanquished in appearance by the flesh which all this while the earth covers. Nor will so great a light be able to fatigue us, for the organs of the body will be strong for everything, which shall have power to delight us. So sudden and ready, both one and the other choir seemed to be saying, Amen, that truly they showed desire for the dead bodies, perhaps not only for themselves, but also for their mothers, for their fathers, and for the others who were dear before they became sempiternal flames. And lo! Round about of a uniform brightness arose a luster outside that which was there, like on a horizon which is growing bright. And even at rise of early evening new appearances begin in the heavens, so that the sight seems and seems not true. It seemed to me that there I began to see new substances in a circle forming outside the other two circumstances.
Carrier kill. Bomb.
O true sparkling of the Holy Spirit, how sudden and glowing it became to mine eyes, which vanquished endured it not. But Beatrice showed herself to me so beautiful and
I'm not
smiling that she
arguing,
must be
you
left among
stupid
those
fucker.
sights which have not followed my memory.
It is shoot on sight, motherfucker.
Then my eyes regained power
You see
to raise
outside?
themselves
Okay,
again, and
you're
I saw
done.
myself alone with my lady transferred to higher salvation.
Terminator.
Then
shut
I
up.
was more uplifted, I perceived clearly by the fiery smile of the star, which seemed to me redder than its wont, with all my heart, and with that speech which is one in all men. I made to God a holocaust such as was befitting to the new race, and the ardor of the sacrifice was not yet exhausted in my breast when I knew that offering had been accepted and propitious. For with such great glow and such great rudiness, splinters appeared to me with two rays, what I said, O Helios, who just so array them?
Now.
Even as marked out by less and greater lights, the galaxy so whitens between the poles of the world, what it indeed makes the wise to doubt. Thus, constellating in the depth of Mars, those rays made the venerable sign which joining of quadrants in a circle make. Here my memory overcomes my genius, for that cross was flashing forth Christ, that I know not to find worthy comparison. But he who makes his cross and follows Christ will yet excuse me for that which I omit, when in that brightness he beholds Christ's eye gleaming. From horn to horn and between the top and the brass lights were moving, brightly scintillating, as they met together and they're passing by. Thus here are seen straight and athwart, swift and slow, changing appearance, the atoms of bodies long and short, moving through the sunbeam, wherewith sometimes the shade is striped, with which contrived with skill and art for the protection. And as a viol or harp strung in harmony of many strings make a sweet tinkling to one by whom the tune is not caught, thus from the lights which there appeared to be a melody was gathered through the cross, which rapt me without understanding of the hymn. Truly was I aware that it was the holy praise, because there came to me, arise and conquer, as unto one who understands not yet hears. I was so enamored. Dude, it was almost forcing me to do that. It was so enamored therewith that until he had not been in anything which fettered me with such sweet bonds. Perchance my word appears too daring, and setting lower the pleasure from the beautiful eyes, gazing to which my desires have repelled. But he who considers that the living seals that every beauty have more effect the higher they are, and that I there had not turned round to those eyes, can excuse me for that whereof I excuse myself, in order to excuse myself and see that I speak truth. For the holy pleasure is not here excluded, because it becomes pure as it mounts. Hi, how are you? Canto 15. Dante is welcomed by his successor, Cacciaguida. Cacciaguida tells of his family and of the simple life of Florence in the old days. A benign will, wherein the love which righteously inspires always manifests itself, as cupidity does as the evil will, imposed silence on that sweet lyre, and quieted the holy strings which the right hand of heaven slackens and draws tight. How unto just petitions shall those substances be deaf, who, in order to give me wish to pray unto them, were concordant in silence? Oh, well is it that he endlessly should grieve, who, for the love of thing which endures not internally, despoils him of that love? Oh, that's funny. No. As though the tranquil and pure evening skies, a sudden fire shoots from time to time, moving the eyes which were at rest, and seems to be a star which has changed its place, except that from the region where it is kindled nothing is lost, and it lasts short while so from the arm which extends on the right to the foot of that cross ran a star of the constellation which is resplendent there. Nor from its ribbon did the gem depart, but through the bridal strip it ran along and seemed like fire behind alabaster. Thus did the pious shade of Anchises advance, if our greatest muse merits belief. when in Elysium he perceived his son. O sanguis meus, O superinfusa gratia Dei,
Round one.
sicut debi qui bi unquam quel janua reclusa. Thus that light whereat I gave heed to it, then I turned my sight to my lady, and on this side, and then I was wonderstruck, for within her eyes was glowing such a smile, that with my own I thought to touch her death of my grace, and of my paradise.
We have the ball.
Then gladsome to hear and to see the Spirit joining to his beginning things, which I understood not, he spoke so profoundly. Nor did he hide himself to my choice, but my necessity for his conception was set above the mark of mortals. And when the bow of his ardent affection was so relaxed that his speech descended toward the mark of our understanding, the first thing that was understood by me was, Blessed be thou, Trinal, and one who in my offspring art so
Enemy has
courteous.
the ball.
And he went on,
Ball dropped.
Grateful and long hunger, derived from reading in the great volume, where white or dark is never changed. Thou hast relived my son within the light in which I speak to thee, thanks to her who quaffed thee with plumes from the lofty flight. Thou believest that thy thought flows to me from her, that which is first, even as from the unit, if that be known, ray out the 5 and 6. And therefore who I am, and may I appear to thee more joyous than any other to the glad crowd, thou askest me not. Thou believest the truth, for the less and the greater the life. Gaze upon the mirror in which before thou thinkest thou dost play thy thought. But in order that the sacred love in which I watch thee, perpetual sight, and which makes me thirst with sweet desire, may be fulfilled the better. Let thy voice secure bold and glad utter the wish, utter the desire to which my answer is already decreed. I turned me to Beatrice, and she heard before I spoke, and smiled to me a sign which made the wings to my desire grow. And I began
Ball
thus.
dropped.
When the first equality appeared to you, the affection and the intelligence became of one weight, for each of you because of the sun which illumined and warmed you, is of such equality in its heat and in its light that all similitudes are defective. But will and discourse in mortals, for the reason which is manifest to you, are diversely feathered in their wings. Wherefore I, who am mortal, feel myself in this inequality, and therefore I give not thanks, save with my heart, for thy paternal welcome. Truly I beseech thee, living topaz that dost engem this precious jewel, that thou make me content with thy name. O leaf of mine, in whom, while only waiting, I took pleasure, I was thy root. Such a beginning he, answering, made to me. Then he said to me, He for whom thy family is named, and who for 100 years and more has circled the mountain, on the first ledge was my son, and was thy great grandsire. Truly it behoves that thou shorten for him his long fatigue with thy works. Florence within the ancient circle wherefrom she still takes both tierce and nuns, was abiding in sober and modest peace. She had not necklace nor coronal, nor dames with ornamented shoes, nor girdle, which was more to be looked in at that the person. Not yet did the daughter at birth cause fear to the father, for her times in the dowry did not evade measure on her side, in that she had not houses void of families. Sardin Palus had not yet arrived, there to show that we can be done in chamber. Not yet by, not yet by your. That's being forced on me, ma'am. I will not take a bribe.
We have the ball.
And not yet by your Ushilachio was Montemala surpassed, which, as has been surpassed in its rise, shall be so in its fall. I saw Belcino Berti go girt with leather and bone.
Keep talking,
and
bitch.
his dame come from her mirror without a painted face. And I saw them of the Nurly and them of the Vicio contented with the uncovered skin. Yeah, your glasses, ma'am. I think it might be what it is. On my neck. Dames was suspended on the distaff. O fortunate woman, every one was sure of her burial place, and as yet no one was deserted in her bed for France. Can you please take off the glasses? One over the cradle kept her careless watch, and comforted she used the idiom which first amuses fathers and mothers.
Another drawing, the tresses from her distaff, told tales to her household of the Trojans, and of Fiesole, and of Rome. A Singhella, a Lappa, Sotero would then have been held as great a marvel as Senectatus or Cornelia would be now. To such a tranquil, to such a beautiful life of citizens, to such a trusty citizenship, to such a sweet end, Mary called on with loud cries, gave me, and in your ancient baptistry I became at once a Christian and Cashiguido. Moranto was my brother, and Elisisco, my dame, came to me from valley of the Po, and thence was I surnamed. Afterward I followed the Emperor Conrad, and he belted me of the soldiery. So much by good deeds did I come into his favor. Following him I went against the iniquity of that law, whose people usurp your sight through fault of the shepherd. There by that base folk was I released from the deceitful world, the love of which pollutes many souls, and I came from martyrdom to this place.
I just believe, but then it's telling me, you doubt me.
I show you mercy today.
You doubt me. Capella there. Mercury's looking pretty good. I even doubt it, and it's telling me no.
I'm entitled to it. You're being more than hard to deal with. I don't know what to tell you. I'm entitled to it, so. I'm getting tired of speaking, though. I'm flooded on the mouth. I'm parched. You're also on the bald head. You're using Sputnik. A ball. You're using a round ball on my head, where the baldness is on the back. That's where it's coming from on my neck. It's definitely back here when you put the pressure on my tooth. It goes down to my tooth. Yeah, that's from the higher up. Like, he's entitled to it, and that was completely inappropriate. So I'm worried about the certificates and the entitlement. You guys are completely hard to deal with, and I'm not going to. I've given you respect today. Tomorrow I will not.
This young T.
Into 16. I know I'm halfway through it.
But there is nothing peculiar.
So I'm pretty sure on some of it they rewrote it. If you go back and look, they added stuff into the Divine Comedy that was not there, written originally by Dante and myself, and they reworded it. I think maybe some of the names were changed as well, which by no means was that legal. But I mean, I would have to see the original. I mean, this would be the original, but Italian version. Not that other people can't translate it, you know.
kill.
Yep, you got it. Oh, you all set up and ready to go? Yeah, that sucks. See how far in that is.
And by the Holy himself, nothing. The agency of the self is merely figurative. What has been stated in the passage, it thinks as it were, and shakes as it were, is here repeated in the clause, for he is the agent in order to furnish a reason.
Pause it. They're using a wave on my keyboard. I have my recording. You can pay for it. You are not getting your own recording of this. At all. I am not involved with these people involved hacking. On camera, you retard. Cool.
In my sights.
Perfect. Killing spree. Lost the lead. Gained the lead. Lost the lead. Enemy halfway to victory.
Can you shoot him? Okay, so anyway.
You are under arrest. If you don't comply with me, I will shoot you. Regarding this, there are the following verses. The radiant infinite being, Perusa, who moves along alone, puts the body aside in the dream state, and himself awake and taking the shining function of the organs with him, watches those that are asleep. Again, he comes to the waking state. Those that are asleep, all external and internal things that are centered in the modifications in the mind and appear as impressions, things that have ceased to be in their own forms. In other words, he reveals them through his own constant vision. Again, he comes to the waking state to work. The radiant infinite being who is immortal and moves alone preserves the unclean nest of a body with the help of the vital force and roams out of the nest. Himself immortal, he goes where he likes. Likewise, he preserves the unclean, lit, worthless nest, the body extremely loathsome and consisting of many filthy things, with the help of the vital force that has a five-fold function. Otherwise it would be taken for dead, but he himself roams out of that nest. Though he dreams staying in the body, yet having no connection with it like the ether in the body, he is said to be roaming out. Himself immortal, he goes wherever he likes. For whatever object his desire is roused, he attains them in the form of impressions. In the dream world, the Shining One, attaining higher and lower states, puts forth innumerable forms. He seems to be enjoying himself in the company of women, or laughing, or even seeing frightful things. Further in the dream world, the Shining One, attaining higher and lower states, as gods and animals, for instances, puts forth innumerable forms as impressions. He seems to be enjoying himself in the company of women, or laughing with friends, or even seeing frightful things such as lions and tigers. 14. Everybody sees his sport, but nobody sees him. They say, do not wake him up suddenly if he does not find the right organ. The body becomes difficult to doctor. Others, however, say that the dream state of a man is nothing but the wakening state, because he sees in dreams only those things that he sees in the waking state. This is wrong. In the dream state, the man himself becomes a light. I give you 1,000 cows, sir. Please instruct me further about liberation. Everybody sees his sport, consisting of the impressions of villages, cities, women, eatables, etc., conjured by the self, but nobody sees him. What a pity that although the self is totally distinct from the body and organs and is present before their very eyes, people are yet unfortunate enough not to see it. Notwithstanding the capacity of being seen, this is how the Suti is sympathizing with mankind. The idea is that in dreams the self becomes altogether distinct and is itself the light. The spirit here, this is what the spirit would be. The flow of the voice, the rhythm. Together we are in spirit. Thank you, bro. I really appreciate you. Canto 18. The spirits in the cross of Mars, ascent to the heaven of Jupiter, words shaped in light upon the planet by the spirits, denunciation of the avarice of the popes. Now was that blessed mirror enjoying alone its own word, and I was tasting mine, tempering the bitter with the sweet, and that lady, who to God was leading me, said, Change thy thought, think that I am near to him who lifts the burden of every wrong. I turned me round at the loving sound of my comfort, and what love I then saw in the holy eyes, I here leave it, not only because I distrust my own speech, but because of the memory which cannot return so far above itself. Unless another guide it, thus much of that moment can I recount, that again beholding her, my affection was free from every other desire. While the eternal pleasure which was rained directly upon Beatrice, from her fair face, was contenting me with its second aspect, vanquishing me with the light of a smile, she said to me, Turn thee and listen, for not only in my eyes is paradise. As sometimes here one sees the affection in the countenance, if it be so great that by it the whole soul is occupied, so in the flaming of the holy effulgence to which I turned me, I recognized the will in it still to speak somewhat with me. It began, In this fifth threshold of the tree, which lives from its top and always bears fruit and never loses leaf, are blessed spirits, who below, before they came to heaven, were of great renown, so that every muse would be rich with them. Therefore gaze upon the arms of the cross. He whom I shall name will there do that which within a cloud its own swift fire does. At the naming of Joshua, even as he did it, I saw a light drawn over the cross, nor was a word noted by me before the act. And at the name of the lofty Maccabeus, I saw another move revolving, and gladness was the whip of the top. Thus the Charlemagne and the Orlando, my attentive gaze followed two of them as the eyes follow his falcon as he flies. Afterward, William and Renaud and the Duke Godfrey and Rupert Guiscard drew my sight over the cross. Then, moving and mingling among the other lights, the soul which had spoken with me showed me how great an artist it was among the singers of heaven. I turned me round to my right side to see my duty signified in Beatrice, either by speech or by act, and I saw her eyes so clear, so joyous, that her semblance surpassed her other and her latest want.
Grown man, I mean
And
what
even
I
as,
say.
through feeling more delight in doing good, a man from day to day becomes aware that his virtue is advancing, so I became aware that my circling around together with the heaven had increased its arc, seeing that miracle more adorned. And such as is the change and brief passage of time in a pale lady, when her countenance is unlading the load of bashfulness, such was there in my eyes when I had turned, because of the whiteness of the temperate sixth star which had received me within itself. I saw within that torch of Jove the sparkling of the love which was there shape out our speech to my eyes, and as birds risen from the river bank, as it rejoicing together over their food, make of themselves a troop, now round now some other shape, so within the lights holy creatures were singing as they flew, and made of themselves now D, now I, now lo, to their proper shapes. First singing they moved to their melody, then becoming one of these characters, they stopped a little and were silent. O divine Pegasus, who makest the wits of men glorious, and renderest them long-lived, as they, through thee, the cities and the kingdoms, illume me with thyself, that I may set in relief their shapes, as I have conceived them. Let thy power appear in these brief verses. They showed themselves then in 5 times 7 vowels and consonants, and I noted the parts as they seemed spoken to me. Diligite gestitium were first verb and noun of all the picture. Qui judicatis terram were the last. Then in the M of the 5th word they remained arranged, so that Jove seemed silver patterned there with gold. And I saw other lights descending where the top of the M was, and became quiet there, singing, I believe, the good which moves them to itself. Then, as on the striking of burnt logs rise innumerable sparks, wherefrom the foolish are wont to draw auguries, there seemed to rise again thence more than 1,000 lights in the mount, one much and one little, according as the sun which kindles them allotted them, and each having become quiet in its place, I saw the head and the neck of an eagle represented by the pattered fire. He who paints there was none who may guide him, but himself guides, and by him is inspired that virtue which is formed for the nest. The rest of the blessed spirits, which at first seemed content to be enlilied on the M, with a slight motion followed out of the imprint. O sweet star, how great gems and how many show to me that our justice is the effect of that heaven which thou engemest. Wherefore I pray the mind in which thy motion and thy virtue have their source, that it regard whence issues the smoke which spoils thy radiance, so that now a second time it may be wrought at the buying and selling within the temple which was walled with signs and martyrdoms. O soldier of the heaven on which I gaze, pray ye for those who are on earth.
Truly.
all gone astray after the bad example. Of old it was the wont to make war with swords, but now it is made by taking, now here, now there, the bread which the piteous Father locks up from none. But thou that writest only in order to cancel, bethank thee that Peter and Paul, who died for the vineyard which thou art laying waste, are still alive. Thou mayest indeed say, I have my desire set so on him who willed to live alone, and for a dance was dragged to martyrdom, that I know not the fisherman nor Paul. They're getting antsy. The voice of the eagle, it sparks of the mysteries of divine justice, of the necessity of faith for salvation of the sins of certain kings. Canto 19. The beautiful image which in its sweet fruition was making joyful the interwoven souls appeared before me with outspread wings. Each soul appeared a little ruby on which a ray of the sun glowed, so enkindled that it reflected him into my eyes. And that which it now behoves me to describe, no voice ever reported, nor ink wrote, nor was it ever conceived by the fancy. For I saw, and also heard, the beak speaking, and uttering with a voice both I and my, when in conception it was we and our. And it began. Through being just and pious, and I here exalted to that glory which lets not itself be conquered by desire, and on earth I left my memory such that the evil people there commend it, but continue not its story. Thus a single heat makes itself felt from many embers, even as from many loves a single sound issued from that image. Wherefore I thereon, O perpetual flowers of the eternal gladness, which make all your odors seem to me as only one, deliver me by your breath from the great fast which was held me long in hunger, not finding for it any food on earth. Well, I know that if the divine justice makes any realm in heaven its mirror, yours does not apprehend it through a veil. Ye know how intensely I dress myself to listen. Ye know what is that doubt which is so old the fast to me. As a falcon which, issuing from his hood, moves his head and claps his wings, showing desire and making himself fine, so I saw this ensign, which was woven over praise of the divine grace, become, with songs such as he knows who there above rejoices. Then it began. He who turned the compasses at the verge of the world, and distributed within it so much occult and manifest, could not so imprint his power on all the universe, that his word should not remain in infinite excess. And this makes certain that the first proud one, who was the top of every creature, through non-awaiting light fell immature. And hence it appears that every lesser nature is a scant receptacle for that God, for that good which has no end and measures itself by itself. Wherefore our vision, which needs must be some ray of the mind, with which all things are full, cannot in its own nature be so potent, that it may not discern its origin to be far beyond that which is apparent to it. Therefore, the sight which your world receives penetrates into the eternal justice as the eye into the sea, which, though from the shore it can see the bottom, on the ocean it sees it not, and nevertheless it is there, but the depth conceals it. There is no light, but that which comes from the serene which is never clouded, nay, there is darkness, either shadow of the flesh or its poison. The hiding place is now open enough to thee, which concealed from thee the living justice concerning which thou madest such frequent question. For thou saidst, a man is born on the bank of the Indus, and no one is there who may speak of Christ, nor who may read, nor who may write. And all his wishes and acts are good so far as human reason sees, without sin in life or in speech. He dies unbaptized and without faith. Where is this justice which condemns him? Where is his sin if he does not believe? Now who art thou that wouldst sit upon a bench to judge 1,000 miles away with the short vision of a single span? Assuredly, for him who subtilizes with me, if the scripture were not above you, there would be occasion for doubting to a marvel. O earthly animals, O gross minds! The primal will, which of itself is good, never is moved from itself, which is the supreme good. So much is just as is accordant to it. No created good draws it to itself, but it, reigned forth, is the cause of that good. As above her nest, the stork circles after she has fed her brood, and as he who has been fed looks up at her, and such became,
and I shall raise my brows. The blessed image, which moved its wings urged by so many counsels. Wheeling it sang and said, as are my notes to thee who understand it, then not so is the eternal judgment to you mortals. After those shining flames of the Holy Spirit became quiet, still in the sign which made the Romans reverend to this world, it began again. To this kingdom no one ever ascended, who had not believed in Christ, either before or after he was nailed to the tree. But behold, many cry Christ, Christ, who at the judgment shall be far less near to him than such a one who knew not Christ. And the Ethiop will condemn such Christians when the two companies shall be divided, the one forever rich and the other poor. What will the Persians be able to say to your kings when they shall see that volume open in which are written all their dispraises? There among the deeds of Albert shall be seen that which shall soon set the pen in motion, by which the kingdom of Prague shall be made desert. There shall be seen the woe which he who shall die by the blow of a wild boar is bringing upon the sane by falsifying the coin. There shall be seen the pride that quickens thirst, which makes the Scot and the Englishman mad, so that neither can keep within his own bounds. The luxury shall be seen, and the effeminate living of him of Spain, and of him of Bohemia, who never knew valor nor wished it. The goodness of the cripple of Jerusalem shall be seen marked with eye, while on him shall mark the contrary. The avarice and the cowardice shall be seen of him who guards the island of the fire, where Anchises ended his long life, and to give to understand how little worth he is. The writing for him shall be in contractor letters, which shall note much in small space. And to everyone shall be apparent the foul deeds of his uncle and of his brother, who have dishonored so famous a nation in 2 crowns. And he of Portugal and he of Norway shall be known there, and he of Russia, who to his harm has been the coin of Venice. Oh, happy Hungary, if she allow herself no longer to be
citizens, get up off your ass and get these guys
and
out of
happy
the building.
Navarre, if she would arm
It's
herself
not a
with the
joke, they're
mountains
under
which bind
arrest.
her round.
If you don't
And
comply,
everyone
open
must
open
believe that
fire.
now, for earnest of this Nishotia
I
and
will open
Formosa
fire.
are lamenting and complaining because
Random
of the beast
stranger.
which departs not from the
I
flank
will
of the
open
others.
fire on you. Stay silent. I want them out of the building completely, entirely. There they go. No, see, her eyes are attached to
Chapter
it.
12,
The
Aristotle.
entire
What say you?
city.
I'll end this on Aristotle. The
You
Pharaoh.
have the right to remain silent.
Among those who have declared themselves
Right
in
here.
any way about government, some
she's trying to
take
trigger
no
this
part
right
in
here.
any political action whatsoever, but live out their lives as
So let's go
private
ahead and get her out.
persons.
You do
As
not.
far as there is anything worth saying about them, it has already been said about pretty much all of them. But some became lawgivers, either for their own cities or for certain foreign ones as well, entering the political realm themselves. Some of these became craftsmen of laws only, but others, such as Lygirdus and Solon, of governments as well, for they established laws and governments too. That of the Spartans has been spoken of. In the case of Solomon, some believe him to have been a lawgiver of great stature, since he abolished an oligarchy that was too unmixed, stopped the populace from being enslaved, and established a democracy bound by tradition, producing a beautifully mixed form of government. For the council of the
Oh, she just let her know
Areopagus
she
is
died.
oligarchic, the election of rulers is aristocratic,
She just
and the
sent out an
law
SOS,
courts
I'm dead.
law courts are democratic. And it seems that Solomon refrained from abolishing those
All get
elements
mad
that were
for me.
present beforehand. The council and the election of rulers, but established the populace in power by making the law courts come from all the power. And some people criticize him for this, on the grounds that he destroyed the other institutions by making the law court, which was selected by lot, sovereign over everything. For when this became strong, by gratifying the populace as though it were a tyrant, they transformed the government into the present democracy. Felix curtailed the power of the council of the Areopagus, and so did Pericles, and Pericles instituted payments for jury duty. And in this way, each of the popular leaders made an advance in growing the city into the present democracy. But it appears that this did not happen in accord with Solomon's intention, but instead just fell out that way. For when the populace had been responsible for naval supremacy in the Persian wars, it became arrogant and took up inferior men as popular leaders, when decent men had policies opposed to its wishes. Solomon, though, at any rate, seems to have granted the populace only the most necessary power, that of electing and reviewing the rulers, for a populace that was not in authority even over this would be a slave and an enemy. But he set things up for all the rulers to come from among distinguished and well-off people, from owners of extensive lands, owners of teams of oxen, and from a third class called horsemen. But the fourth class, the menials, had no share in office. Zalcus became a lawgiver for the Italian Locrians, and the Charondas of Catana
for his own fellow citizens and for the other Chalcidians cities in Italy and Sicily. Some people try to connect them on the grounds that Onamokratus, a Locrian living abroad in pursuit of his art of soothsaying, first became proficient in law-giving by being trained in Crete, that Thales became companion of his, and that Lycurgus and Zalcus were students of his, and Charondas of Zalcus, but they say these things with too little attention to the dates. Philausius, the Corinthian, became a lawgiver for the Thebans. Philausius was of the family of the Bacchiads and was a lover of Diocles, who had been victorious in the Olympic Games. When Diocles, in abhorrence of his mother...
Okay, buddy.
his mother Alcone's lust left the city and went to Thebes. He and Philo... I can't even speak. I'm laughing at you. Is that how it works? When Dioceles, in abhorrence of his mother Alcione's lust, Alcyone, choking me out. When in abhorrence of his mother Alcyone's lust, left the city and went to Thebes, he and Philausius both lived out their lives there. Even now people point out their tombs, each easily visible from the other, but one with and the other without, a view toward the land of the Corinthians. And story they tell is that the men themselves arranged the burial that way. Out of the hatred of the passion, so that Corinth would not be visible from his mound, and Philausius, so it would be visible from his. So they came to live among the Thebans for this sort of reason, and Philausius became a lawgiver for them both on certain other matters, and on the procreation of children, framing what they call the laws on adoption. This is legislation designed in a way peculiar to him, so that the number of inherited estates would be kept constant. There is nothing peculiar to Charondas except lawsuits for perjury, for he was the first to make this a legal charge. But in the precision of his laws he is more polished than even the lawyers of the present day. Peculiar to Phaleus is the equalization of properties. To Plato, the community of women, children, and property, common meals for women, and also the law about drunkenness, that sober people should be in charge of drinking parties, as well as one about training for military service in such a ways as to make people become ambidextrous by practice, since one of a pair of hands ought not to be useful while the other is useless. And there are Draco's laws, but he framed his laws for an existing constitution. There is nothing in his law at all worthy of mention apart from the harshness due to the size of the penalty. Pittacus also became a craftsman of laws, but not of constitution. A law peculiar to him is one that requires people who are drunk to pay a greater penalty if they transgress than those who are sober. For since more people commit violent outrages when drunk than when sober, he did not look kindly on the excuse that one ought to be more forgiving of those who are drunk, but look to what would do some good. And Androdamus of Rhegium became a lawgiver for the Chalcidians in Thrace. Their laws about homicides and heiresses are his, but there is nothing peculiar to him in them that one could name. So on matters concerning forms of government, both those holding sway and those described by some people, let them have been held up to view in the way. Take a break after that one? Okay. I think he's pointing out that the speech leaves you more drunk than the substance. And also, Dante has pointed out several times, he's wording it in a way that will bring out the dog whistle. So I just want you to know what's about to happen with that dog whistle that you're firing at my sinuses. That's part of it. They're contradicting each other. So, Canto 20. The Song of the Just. Princes who have loved righteousness in the eye of the eagle. Spirits, once pagans, in bliss. Faith and salvation. Predestination. When he who aligns all the world descends from our hemisphere so that the day on our every side is spent, the heavens which erst by him alone are enkindled sun become again conspicuous, with many lights on which one is shining. And this act of the heavens came to my mind when the ensign of the world and of its leaders became silent in its blessed beak, because of all those living lights far more shining began songs which lapse and fall from out of my memory. Oh yes. I'm just gonna go ahead and that's not what I wanted, but that's where I'm going.
Gain the lead.
Excuse me for a second. I will call upon. Okay. Oh, sweet love, that cloakest thee with a smile, how ardent didst thou appear in those pipes, which had the breath alone of holy thoughts. After the precious and lucid stones wherewith I saw the sixth luminary engemmed impose silence on their angelic bells, I seemed to hear that murmur of a stream which falls pellucid down from rock to rock, showing the abundance of its mountain source. And as the sound takes its form at the cithern's neck, and in like manner at the vent of the bagpipe, the air which enters it, thus, without pause of waiting, that murmur of the eagle rose up through its neck, as it were hollow. There it became voice, and thence it issued through its beak in form of words, such as the heart whereon I wrote them was awaiting. The part in me which in mortal eagles sees and endures the sun, it began to me, must now be fixedly looked upon, because of the fires whereof I make shape. Those wherewith the eye in my head sparkles are the highest of all their grades. He who shineth in the middle, as the pupil, was the singer of the Holy Spirit, who bore about the ark from town to town. Now he knows the merit of his song, so far as it was the effect of his own counsel, by the recompass which is equal to it of the five which make a circle for the brow. He who is nearest of my brief consoled the poor widow for her sons. Now he knows by the experience of his sweet life in the and of the opposite, how dear it costs not to follow Christ. And he who follows along the top of the ark in the circumference of which I speak, by true penitence postponed death. Now he knows that the eternal judgment is not altered, when worthy prayer there below makes tomorrow what is of today. The next who follows under a good intention, which bore had bared fruit, by seeding to the pasture, made himself greet together with the laws of me. Now he knows how the ill derived from his good action is not hurtful to him, although whereby the world may be destroyed. And he who thou seest in dawn bent, was William, whom that land deplores, which weeps for Charles and Frederick living. Now he knows how heaven is enamored of a just king, and even by that aspect of his effulgence makes it seen. Who down in the erring world would believe that Ripius the Trojan was the fifth in the circle of the holy lights? Now he knows much of what the world cannot see of the divine grace, although his sight cannot discern its depth. Like as a little lark that in the air expatiates first singing, and then is silent, content with the last sweetness which satisfies her, such seemed to me the image of the imprint of the eternal pleasure, according to whose desire everything becomes that which it is. And though I was there, in respect to my doubt, like glass to the color which cloaks to it, it endured not to await the time in silence, but with the force of its own weight, urged from my mouth, "What thing are these?" Whereat I saw a great festival sparkling. Thereupon with its eye, more enkindled, the blessed ensign answered me, in order not to keep me in wondering suspense. "I see that thou believest these things because I say them, but thou seest not how, so that although believe them, they are hidden.
No.
Thou dost as one who fully apprehends a thing by name, but cannot see its quiddity unless another explains it. Regnum colorum suffers violence from fervent love and from a living hope which vanquishes the divine will. Not in such wise as man overcomes man, but vanquishes it, because it wills to be vanquished, and vanquished vanquishes with its own
Nearing victory.
benignity. The first life of the eyebrow, and the fifth make thee marvel, because thou seest the region of the angels painted with them. From their bodies they did not science Gentiles, as thou believest, but Christians informed faith of the feet that were to suffer, one of the feet that had suffered for the one from hell. Where there is never return to righteous will, came back to his bones, and was the reward of living hope. Of living hope, which is but his power and prayer made of God to raise him up, so that it might be possible that his will should be moved. The glorious soul whereof I speak returns to the flesh, in which remained short while, believed in him who was able to aid it, and believing was kindled such fire of true love, that at the second death it was worthy to come to his sport. The other through grace, which distills from a fount so deep the creature never pushed the eye far as its primal wave. There below set all his love on righteousness. Wherefore from grace to grace God opened his eye to our future redemption, so that he believed in it, and thenceforth endured no more the stench of paganism, and reproved therefore the perverse folk. More than 1,000 years before baptizing those 3 ladies whom thou sawest at the light wheel, where to him for baptism on predestination, how remote is thy root from the sight of those who see not the entire first cause. And ye mortals keep yourselves restrained in judging, for we see who God now not yet all the elect. And unto us such one is sweet, for our good is perfected in this good, that what God wills we also will. Thus to make my short sight clear, sweet medicine was given to me by that divine image. And as a good lutenist makes the vibration of the string accompany a good singer, whereby the song acquires more pleasantness, so it comes back to my mind that while it spake, I saw the two the blessed lights moving their flamelets to the words, just as the winking of the eyes concords.
The motion there, one way.
Pocahontas made an appearance somewhere in there. Ascent to the heaven of Saturn. Spirits of those who had given
Where's the camera
themselves
at?
to devout contemplation. The golden stairway. St. Peter Damien, predestination, the luxury of modern
Iron
prelates.
Dome, where's the camera at? I'm not arguing.
Now
either.
we're all, my eyes
I said
fixed
today,
again
Did I not say today?
upon the countenance of my
Did
lady.
I not say today?
And my
That
mind with
wasn't a
him,
joke
and
at
from
all.
every other intent it was withdrawn. And she was not smiling, but
I'm not
if I
either.
should smile, she began to me, thou wouldst become such as see me, was when she became
That's how it
ashes
goes.
for my beauty, which along the stairs for the eternal place is kindled the more, as thou hast seen. The higher it ascends, is so resplendent that if it were not tempered, it at its effulgence, thy mortal power would be as bow shattered by thunder. We are lifted to the seventh splendor, which beneath the breast of the burning lion now radiates downward mingled with its strength. Fix thy mind behind thy eyes, and make of them mirrors, for the shape which is the mirror shall be apparent to thee.
There he is.
He who should know what was the pasture of my sight in her blessed aspect, when I transferred me to another care, would recognize by counterpoising one side with the other, how pleasing it was to me to obey my celestial escort. Within the crystal which circling around the world bears the name of its shining leader, under whom all wickedness lay dead, I saw the color of gold through which a sunbeam is shining, a stairway rising up so high that my eye followed it not. I saw, moreover, so many splendors descending along the steps, that I thought every light which appears in heaven was there diffused. And as, according to their natural custom, the rooks at the beginning of the day move about together in order to warm their gold feathers, then some go away without return, others wheel around to whence they had set forth, and others circling make astray. Such fashion, it seemed to me, was here in that sparkling which came together, so soon as it struck on a certain step, and that which stopped nearest to us became so bright that I said to my thought, I clearly see the love which thou signifiest to me, but she, from that I wait, the how, and the when of speech and of silence. Stay still, wherefore I, contrary to desire, do well that I ask not. Whereupon she, who saw my silence, in the sight of him who sees everything, said to me, Let loose thy warm desire.
And I begin. My own merit makes me not worthy of the answer, but for her sake who concedes to me the asking, O blessed life, that keepest thyself hidden within thy own joy, make known to me the cause which has placed thee so near me, and tell me why in this will the sweet symphony of my paradise is silent, which below through the others is devoutly sounds. Thou hast the hearing, mortals, as the sight, it replied to me. Therefore no song is here for the same reason that Beatrice has no smile. Down along the steps of the holy stairway I have thus far descended only to give thee glad welcome with my speech, and with the light that mantles me. Nor has more love made me to be more ready, for as much and more love is burning here above, even as the flaming manifests to thee. But the high charity which makes us ready servants to the counsel that governs the world allots here even as thou observest. I see well, said I, O sacred lamp, how the free will of love suffices in the court for following the eternal providence.
Oh, here's sneaking.
But this is what seems to me hard to discern, why thou alone wert predestined to this office among thy consorts. I had not come to the last word before the light made a center of its middle whirling like a swift millstone. Then the love that was within it answered, A divine light strikes upon me, penetrating through this whereon I embosom me, the virtue of which conjoined with my vision lifts me above myself, for far that I see the supreme essence from which it emanates. Thence comes the joy wherewith I flame, because to my vision, in my proportion as it is clear, I match the clearness of my flame. But that soul in the heaven which is most enlightened, the seraph who has his eyes most fixed on the God, could not satisfy thy demand, because that which thou askest lies so deep within the abyss, the eternal statute, that from every created sight it is cut off. And when thou returnest to the mortal world, carry this back so that it may no more presume to move its feet towards such a goal. The mind which shines here on earth is smoky, wherefore consider how there below it cannot do that which it cannot through heaven assume it. So did its words prescribe to me, that I left the question and drew me back to ask it humbly who it was. Between the two shores of Italy, and not very distant from my native land, rise rocks so lofty that the thunders sound far lower down, and they make a height which is called Castria, beneath which a hermitage is consecrated, which is wont to be devoted to worship only. Thus it began again to me with its third speech, and then continued it again. Here in the service of God I become so steadfast, that with food of olive juice alone, lightly I used to pass the heats and frosts, content in contemplative thoughts. The cloister was wont to render in abundance to these heavens, and now it is become so empty as needs must soon be revealed. In that place I was Peter Damien, and Peter a sinner I had seen in the house of Our Lady, in the Adriatic shore. Little of mortal life was remaining for me when I was sought for and dragged, so that hat which ever is passed down from bad to worse. Cephas came, and the great vessel of the Holy Spirit came lean and barefoot, taking the food of whatsoever in. Now the bonner pastures require one to hold them up on this side and that, and one to lead them. So heavy are they, and one to support them behind. They cover their palfreys with their mantles, so that two beasts go under one skin. Oh, patience that endurest so much. At this song I saw more flamets from step to step, descending and revolving, and each revolution made them more beautiful. Round about this one they came, and stopped and uttered a cry of such deep sound that here could be none like it, nor did I understand it. The thunder so overcame me.
Hill incoming. Hill ready. Hill control. In my sights. Enemy team took the hill. Hill control. Your team about to score. Your team scored. Hill ready. Enemy team took the hill. Hill control. Enemy team took the hill.
Oh, I didn't realize it was done. That's all I have for the day. I want to, when I'm talking, I want to scream like, oh no! Why would you say that? You know what I mean? Certain moments. Burst out in rage. I'm trying to bite my tongue. I'm trying to do better over here. Oh, no.
Your team about to score.
I'm not gonna deal with their cheating. I don't care if we have a good game. Like I said, taking turns. Like I said, they roll out the red carpet. You got to pause everything. Roll out the red carpet. No. Nah. See? 3 shots after shield's down, they're still not dead? Nah. Come on, boys. That's what I'm talking about. No. Furthermore, there's a reason it's happening. Peter over here. The Spartan? Peter? Is that a joke? That's why I gave you a look. Like, really? Every Spartan helmet, you know what I mean? You're Peter. Achilles is Peter. You're saying Achilles is Peter. I'm gonna have to look this up. A kiss. That's a kiss. Or is that a whisper? I have to determine these.
Hill control. Bandit over here.
I don't know anything about Peter, so I have no relation here to go off of. Again, I've never read it. This is the first reading. Real? Oh yeah, real. No, not at all. We've already been through this.
Enemy team took the hill. Enemy team.
It's like I don't remember. I think I've read it, but I don't remember it. As far as New Testament, or is that Old Testament? I don't even know if it's New Testament or Old Testament. So that shows you anything. Is this the Trojan War? The Olympics?
Enemy there. Hill control.
All good questions. All good questions. He likes to delay it. He doesn't want to tell everything all at once. So the Trojan Wars are in the Olympics, and I guess the way they verse the literature is part of the Olympics. That's good to know. That's amazing. Thank you for that piece of information. But that concludes today. Like I said, I tried not to scream too much and get into a fit of rage over the remarks that are made.